Alright then. I'm ready to level up. Let's start a brand new age of heroes!
Yeah, I'm with you, Ichiban.
Let's have a toast to our new era in our new home!
Yeah, to the heroes of tomorrow.
Cheers!
Hey, what's up and welcome to Game Positive. It's been an entire week since the next generation has begun, and being fortunate enough to secure an Xbox Series X myself, I've had an absolute blast partaking in the 9th generation of consoles. This is absolutely a generation where the biggest difference is in how games feel instead of the traditional visual leap we're used to seeing from generation to generation, so I thought I'd do my best to describe some of my best experiences having my dreams powered over the last 7 days. Keep in mind, all the gameplay captured in this video is captured from the Xbox itself, so it's not an exact replica of how good these games look when playing it on your own console at home. So with that being said, let's jump right into the games. Bright Memory is a game created by one extremely talented individual, serving up as more of an appetizer of sorts for the full version, which is slated to release next year. Bright Memory is a very good demonstration of the Xbox Series X capabilities. The game runs at a rock-solid 60 frames per second at 4K resolution and features ray tracing. It might not show up as good in the capture as it does while playing, but seeing real-time reflections off the metallic surfaces of your gun, as an example, is just really cool. The game itself offers a pretty fun mix of shooting and melee combat and a very unique combination of enemies and bosses. Some are inspired by traditional kind of future tech military, and other things are inspired by Chinese mythology. Both mixing together is an unusual mix, but it's really cool to see on screen. I would recommend enabling VSync in the settings though as soon as you start the game, as it's disabled by default, and without it being turned on, you're going to see some severe screen tearing, so keep that in mind. I'm excited to see what the man behind Bright Memory can achieve when he has a full team at his disposal for the game's full release later next year. One thing I would like to see in the full release is a more fine-tuned controller experience, as currently the sensitivity on the X and Y axes are tied together, which makes it feel a little bit awkward, where with controllers it's typical to have the X and Y axes be at different sensitivities because a controller obviously doesn't control the same way that a mouse does. Overall, this is a very pretty slice of game. I say slice because you can actually complete this in less than an hour, but the game is only $10 to offset this. However, it does have a full achievement list and is a great showcase for the console, so I don't regret my purchase at all. I highly recommend giving Bright Memory a go if you want that really cheap way to kind of have an awesome showpiece title to show off your console to any friends or neighbors or whoever that may be visiting, or just yourself. Next up is Yakuza Like a Dragon. This is the first game I purchased for the Series X, and as a relatively new fan of the series, having only played Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Kiwami, I was a little skeptical of some of the sweeping changes they made in Yakuza Like a Dragon, but I decided to make the purchase anyway because of how good the first two games I played were. The gameplay has changed from a beat 'em up to a turn-based JRPG, and also changed out its longtime lead in Kazuma Kiryu for a brand new character to the series named Ichiban Kasuga, as well as move the setting from the distinct district of Kamurocho to a new city in the series called Yokohama. The gameplay change is a bit of a shock at first, but it being turn-based actually lets the developers' imaginations run wild with some of the most insane attacks, special moves, and summons I have seen in a JRPG to date. And Ichiban as a character is so likable, it only took me about 30 minutes to really become 100% okay with him as the main protagonist, although I definitely still love Kiryu. Yokohama is beautifully imagined at a native 1440p 60 frames per second on the game's normal mode, and even walking around the city in first person, I've never felt like I was let down by not being at 4K. The city is full of detail during the day and lit up like a Christmas tree at night. Character models also look great, which is important because the game is packed full of story. There is a resolution mode that you can enable, which does bump the resolution up to 4K at the cost of 60 frames per second. It does look great, don't get me wrong, at 4K. However, I prefer to have the smoothness that the 60 frames per second offers, which is probably why the developers enabled normal mode by default. I don't want to talk too much about this game because I do have a full review planned to come out in the near future once I finish the game. Although it is quite a long experience, I've probably put about 10 hours or so into it, and I'm only on chapter 4 of 15, I believe, so there's still a long way to go with this one. However, what I've played so far has been fantastic. The story is extremely gripping, at least in my opinion, and it's the game I constantly want to jump in and play more of. Next up is Gears 5. For all of the enhanced backwards compatible games I have played, Gears 5 is definitely the one that I have played the most, and the main reason for that is absolutely the 120 FPS mode available in the Versus multiplayer. Many of you have checked out my last video on the best budget 120Hz monitor to get for your Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5 console, and this game right here is the reason I was on the hunt for one of those monitors in the first place. Playing Gears 5 at 120 FPS is such an incredible experience. Oftentimes, I'm wall bouncing in for a kill and it almost feels like I'm Neo in the Matrix. Everything is so smooth that it feels like the game is slowing down around me, making it so much easier to line up those gibs. This is how I hope most competitive multiplayer games work as the generation carries on, because 120 FPS is just so smooth for PvP. I have also checked out the game running at its campaign resolution, which is 4K 60, along with increased texture resolutions, improved lighting, and other effects, and it is a noticeable improvement. In all honesty, from everything I have seen, I think Gears 5's campaign is the best representation of next generation graphics at this point, full stop. It is available on Game Pass, so it has a low barrier to entry. I highly recommend booting up that campaign if you really want a quick and easy way to show off what your next gen console can do. Next up is Sea of Thieves. While Gears 5 might be the overall best looking next gen game that I've played, at least, Sea of Thieves is without a doubt the biggest leap from where it was on the Xbox One. Sea of Thieves is one of my favorite games from the last generation, but it was severely hampered by a slow hard drive and a weak CPU on the original Xbox One. It could take upwards of 3 minutes to load into a game and over 60 seconds to respawn in the middle of a PvP battle, which was not uncommon for me. And if you're battling against somebody on PC with an SSD, they're respawning at like 1/4 of the time. Combine that with fluctuating 30 FPS and a more tight FOV, it was really easy to lose track of enemies as they whisk by you or miss a crucial button prompt while trying to pilot your ship while all the game's mechanics are hitting you at once. All of that is gone instantly when you boot the game up on the Series X. The game loads in extremely fast and runs at a buttery smooth 60 frames per second. It honestly feels like I'm playing a brand new game, and with the launch of The Fate of the Damned lining up nicely with the console's release, there has never been a better time to jump back into the seas with Sea of Thieves. Finally, the last game I wanted to talk about today was Tetris Effect Connected, another Game Pass title and a surprise hit for me. At the end of the day, it is just Tetris, but the layers on top of this standard Tetris experience is what makes the game so special. The mix of intense visuals and mesmerizing audio design makes this a must play in my opinion. I have just found myself getting lost in time playing this game. It's such an incredible experience. Visually, it's a great example of HDR as the colors, although some may say oversaturated, they just blast off the screen. And on a personal note as well, This is one game that has actually caused my girlfriend to pick up an Xbox controller for the first time, I think, in our entire relationship, and it feels like she's kind of obsessed with it. I found out also that she's somehow a Tetris prodigy and completely destroyed me in 1v1, and I don't know if my ego will ever recover. Well, those have been my top experience of this last week with the Series X, but before I wrap, I just want to address the big elephant that's in every Series X and Series S owner's gaming room, and that's the absence of Halo Infinite. Master Chief has been spotted all over the land on candy bars, pizza pop boxes, slushy cups, as well as being prominently featured on the back of the console's packaging. It's very clear that he was meant to be here on day one, and the fact that he's not is obviously a big blow to Xbox's first-party lineup. Sony has come to the table with a ton of compelling launch titles such as Demon's Souls, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Astro's Playroom, Sackboy, etc. There's a ton of experiences that are really awesome on the PlayStation and are exclusive to PlayStation, and Halo would have been the perfect counterpunch to that. However, obviously the game needed more time, and to be quite honest with you, I'm somewhat okay with that. I want to play Halo just as much as everyone else, but what I want more is that for Halo Infinite to be the best game it could possibly be, and for 343 Industries and everyone else working on the game to remain happy, healthy, and passionate about the project, something that is really hard to do when you're forced to crunch as hard as possible, especially during a global pandemic. I'm incredibly confident in 343's ability to deliver a Halo experience we will all love, and I'm incredibly confident as well that Microsoft won't under any circumstances let a bad Halo game see the light of day. So with that being said, I will stay patient and stay hyped, but Halo is not the only thing to look forward to as time goes on. Being a brand new owner of the Xbox series of consoles, there are a lot of other things coming down the pipe that I'm extremely excited for. Cyberpunk being the obvious highlight, but early 2021 is going to be home to a lot of intriguing releases. Stay tuned to the channel for a video covering what's to come, covering what I'm most excited for anyway. But that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far and enjoyed the video, please feel free to like and subscribe. Also, make sure to follow me on Twitter to stay up to date and reach out to me with any questions, comments, or topics you would like to see discussed on the channel or on the podcast. Until next time, remember to have fun out there, everyone, and I'll talk to you soon.